Okay, this is one of the first videos in the price action basics series, and it's basically as an introduction to the median line. The methodology we trade, we've termed market flow, and the reason for that is we're always trading in flow with the longer term order flow, and we do that by utilizing two methodologies. We utilize action reaction theory, which this is an introduction to, and we also utilize tape reading. I was trained as a tape reader back in my prop trading days. I could trade the market utilizing a time and sale strip alone. And for a number of years I used those skills to day trade the ES. But with me being based in the UK, I'm in Scotland, I always had to wait till 2:30 in the afternoon before the ES opened. So naturally I started looking for other markets, and when I came across the euro, I realised that I had to expand and develop that tape reading approach to accommodate the trending nature of the euro. And so we developed some custom indicators, some proprietary indicators. We have Campaign Manager, and we use volumetric price information. So there's two approaches. We combine a combination of tape reading skills utilising the volume information, and there's a number of volume indicators which we have developed, and we use that in conjunction with median line theory. So a brief introduction to the median line, or the centre line as it's also known. Originated from the work of the late Roger Babson. He was an infamous speculator who was credited for predicting the 1929 crash. And back in his day, Babson was estimated to have earned about $50 million. If you think about that in today's terms, that's even a fantastic amount of money. But 90 years ago, that was an incredible amount of money. And one of the principles that Babson felt particularly strong about was that for every action there was an equal and opposite reaction. And his belief in that gave birth to the action-reaction theory, and he called it the normal line. One of Babson's students was a young PhD student called Alan Andrews. Whilst working at MIT, he studied with Babson and developed the theory further. And Andrews later on, about 30 years later, released a course called the Action Reaction course. It was in the 1960s, and he credited that course to Roger Babson. But Andrews had developed the theory a bit further and developed what's now known as the Andrews pitchfork, which everybody's heard of, at least in name. They both use the same principle, the same underlying theory, and the principles here, they're over 100 years old. I don't know if Babson did invent it from his understanding of the laws of physics, but even if he did, the principles are at least 90 years old, and they've stood the test of time. I certainly know that institutions are very familiar with these. I was originally put onto this work by an Australian market maker, and I've used it every day in my trading since. So it's an extremely important concept, whether it's 90 years old or not. Okay, now Babson always believed that you could apply the laws of physics to the financial markets, and there was two principles which he used to do that. He believed that natural cycles would return to the centres, and that for every action there was an equal and opposite reaction. Now, if you think of this in theoretical terms, there's a sine wave drawn on the right hand side here. Now, point A would be the start of a trend, and point B would be the end of the leg. The pullback would be point C, and from point A through pivots B and C we could draw a centre line, also known as the median line. Now the theory is that cycles return to the centres. So using that underlying principle, we would expect price to return to the centre, or to the median line. And we can see here at point X that price completes one complete cycle and returns to its median line. So if you think about that, if we can correctly identify the centre line in the market, that gives us very powerful. That gives us a lot of information. Now, more importantly, Alan Andrews, who was an MIT student, developed this theory a lot further. Being an engineering student, he was a statistician at heart, and he did some statistics on this. And they reckoned that price returned to the median line about 80% of the time. Now, that's a very, very powerful very powerful principle. For those of you who may not understand the implications of that just now, we use this every day in the room, and you'll be fascinated, intrigued, and absolutely amazed at how accurate this work actually is. And I've said here, cycles return to the centres, or the median line in this case, 80% of the time. Now it's very powerful. It forms the basis of our trade methodology. And if you can accurately determine the centre line, you can be confident that price is going to return there. And because you can be confident that it's going to return to the centre line, or the median line, it gives you a powerful directional bias for your trade ideas. Now the only gotcha you have here is that you have to accurately identify the correct centre line. Now we mentioned at the start of this video, your tape readers, we have some very accurate volume indicators which we use to do this. And so by culminating our volume price work and our money flow indicators, we can be pretty damn certain of the correct centre line, and therefore we can use these trading principles to our advantage in the room. Now one of Babson's second principles, we mentioned the first one, that prices return to the centres, and again that's very powerful and it gives us a directional bias. But the other principle is that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And again, if we've accurately identified the centre line, then by working out the action waves, now if you think about this, here's the action wave here, the centre line. If I can measure the distance of the action wave, which is a higher low above the centre line, because it's equal and opposite, if I then translate that and make it equidistant about the centre line, then I know when price is going to be oversold. So when price is overbought, I mirror that, if you like, on the other side of the centre line, and to the tick almost every single time you can see where price will be oversold. And this is the theory, this is the sine wave theory. So we know that price will return to the centre, and we also know that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And this is the basis of Roger Babson's work. Now these principles form our trading rules. This is the basics of it all. And the only thing you have to believe in, you have to believe this work, but you see it day in, day out, you start to believe it. There's no, you don't need much convincing. But you have to understand that price is always following a centre line. Sometimes the centre line isn't readily apparent, but it's always following a centre line. So let's summarise those principles. And after this, this is an introduction to it. I'll then look at some trades taken. We'll bring up NinjaTrader and we'll look at some of the trades taken in the room this morning using this theory. But let's just summarise the principles. When price returns to the median line, there'll often be a pivot made on the median line. Okay, that's a principle which I'm just introducing now. Okay, cycles return to the centres 80% of the time. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Price is always following a centre line. And now in the fourth principle which I'm introducing here is that when price returns to the median line, often a pivot will be made on the median line. Now on the next video we'll look at some of this in real time. I'll show you how to identify and correctly label the pivots. But this is just it's an introduction to the theory of everything we do. The centre line, action reaction theory we do in the room. This is where it all began. It was based on the work of these two late great gentlemen, and it'd be very arrogant of myself or anybody else using this work to take credit for it, because I'm very thankful that these gents made this work available. But I'm sure you guys will be as fascinated with it as I am, and certainly Al is, and you'll be convinced of its power. Even with one day in the room, you'll see for yourself how powerful this work is. Okay, in the next video series we'll expand upon this some more. I hope you enjoyed the introduction. Okay, thank you.